right, so we're going to look at lesson 2.6 today, which is all about vertical angles. And we've actually talked about vertical angles before, but it's been a while. So we need to refresh our memory on what a vertical angle is. Find a pen here. Okay. So I found my pen. Back in chapter 1, we actually defined what a vertical angle was, but it's been a while, so I'm going to refresh our memory. Vertical angles are formed by opposite rays. So this got a ray going this way, I've got a ray going this way, and then let me change colors here. If I have a ray going out this direction and this direction, so see how these two opposite rays cross. The angles that are formed are what we're talking about. This angle right here and this angle right here, those are vertical angles. And then this angle right here and this angle right here are vertical angles, okay, which is this image right here. So that's what a vertical angle is. We're going to look at what's called the vertical angle. Let me take this off. The vertical angles theorem. And so it's our very first theorem. We've had lots of postulates. Remember, postulates are assumed true. A theorem has actually been proven true. So I'm going to number these. We're going to call this 1, 2, 3, and 4. And that just makes it easier than if I had to say angle A, B, C, and then angle C, B, D. Like this just be a lot of wording. So that's why we're going to just call them 1, 2, 3, and 4. So angle 1 is congruent to angle 3. That's what the vertical angles theorem says, that all vertical angles right here are congruent. So see, we've used our abbreviation here, which then also means angle 2 is congruent to angle 3. Sorry, 4. I wrote 3, 4. Okay. Yep. Sorry. It's been a while since I've used my pen, and clearly it's not going well. Okay. So angle 1 and 3 are congruent. Angle 2 and 4 are congruent. What we need to do whenever we see problems like this is we need to mark them. So remember we talked about our congruency marks. So when I see vertical angles from now on, I'm going to mark them. This means these are congruent. So I can decipher that the 2 and the 4 are congruent. I'm going to use 2 little half moons there to say that those are congruent to each other. Now, I'm also going to go back here for just a minute and talk about the fact that even though we are doing vertical angles in this chapter or in this section of this chapter, we still use things from previous chapters. So these two angles right here are a linear pair. They're supplementary. They equal 180, and we can use that to solve these problems. So we're going to go through that again in this section. So let's move on to some examples. I think I'm on yellow, so let's change colors. All right, so if I see a problem like this, let's say I'm taking a quiz. Can't get this to change colors. All right, so say I'm taking a quiz and I have a question like this. The first thing I want to do is I want to mark those congruent because that's a visual to me going, oh yeah, if I see those things marked congruent, then I'm going to mark them congruent when I go to solve my problem. So 3x is equal to, because remember congruency applies to letters. So if I had like, let's say this was A, B, and C, I could say angle ABC is congruent to angle DBE. I could say that. Or I could, when I write it out as a problem, I'll say 3x equals 2x plus 33. So I need the equal sign for solving, but I need the congruency markers for letters. Why it's not wanting to change. Okay, so we're going to solve our problem. I'm going to draw my line. So I have my line. And then I'm going to go through here and I'm going to start solving. So remember, we pick on the little guy. It's been a while. We've been in that section of reasoning and we haven't been doing solving. But this 2x is the little guy. So I'm going to subtract 2x from both sides. And so x is equal to 33. And so that's my value of x. Now, if I asked you for angle ABC right here, so remember our web, ABC, then you're going to take this 33 and you're going to plug it in to 3x. So this is 3x times 33. So this is 99 degrees. So if I ask for that angle right here, I could also ask you for the measure of angle CBE. And if I did that, remember these right here are supplementary. So I could say 180 minus 99. And then I find out that this is 81 degrees right here. 81. And then if these are congruent to each other, then this is 81. And if these are congruent to each other, this is 99. And can anybody guess? I know you can't answer me because it's a video. If I add all those up, what I'm going to get? Yes, you get 360 because that is a circle. And so you could actually check that and add those up. All right, moving on. Let's go. Let me change colors. Doesn't like my pen when I use it. I can only use the mouse to change colors. All right, so when I see this problem right here, I'm going to mark congruency. So I'm going to mark this congruent to this one. So I have 3x is equal to 75. I'm going to go ahead and solve. Divide both sides by 3. Some of you don't need to do that transition step. You can just solve it. And so x is equal to 25. Now I'm going to go back and find out the value of y. And I've actually got a couple of options here. I could actually plug it in and then, do the supplementary, but I could also go supplementary this direction right here. So I know that y plus 75 has to add up to 180 degrees. That's a linear pair. They're right next to each other. They form a line. So I'll subtract 75 from both sides. Oops, I forgot my line. And so y is equal to 105. And so those are my two measures for x and y. All right, we're going to go on to this last question, and then we're going to do some whiteboard practice questions. So on this particular question, this is what I would consider a challenge question. So I'll try to give you throughout the year questions that I consider to be a challenging, which means that not everybody will be able to answer it. That's why it's called a challenge. But some of you, it'll be one that's good for you, like you need to stretch your brain. So I'm going to mark these two congruent. So I have 2x is equal to y minus x. And so I look at this problem and I'm like, oh my goodness, I've got multiple variables here. I haven't had that situation since Algebra 1, and I remember doing this, but I'm not quite sure. So I'm just going to kind of leave that there for a minute. I'm going to see if there's another way I can get my answer. So remember, we've talked about the fact that this right here is a linear pair. So I'm going to say y plus x plus y minus x equals 180. So I'm like, oh goodness, I've got another equation here, and it's got, multiple variables as well. So if you remember back to Algebra 1, whenever we had multiple variables, we typically had two equations. So I've got one over here on the left, and I've got one over here on the right. And this was called systems of equations. And we would solve these using either substitution or elimination methods. Sometimes we did graphing. Obviously, I've got 180 out here. I do not want to graph that. So I'm going to clean this up right here. So I'm on this right-hand side. I'm going to clean this problem up. And so when I clean up, remember y and y will go together. So that gives me 2y. And then I've got positive x and negative x. And what happens is those cancel out. Positive x and negative x cancel out, makes 0. So I've got 2y is equal to 180. Well, now it's getting better because I just have one variable. So I'm going to divide both sides by 2, and so y is equal to 90. And so I found out my y value. So I'm like, okay, good. I'm on the right track. I'm going to take this y value and I'm going to plug it back into this problem. This was the substitution method that we did in Algebra 1. So I have 2x is equal to 90 minus x. And so now I'm like, oh, I don't have any more y's. This is looking good. I can start solving this. I'm going to add x to both sides. So 3x is equal to 90. Divide both sides by 3, x is equal to 30. And so then there's my two answers. You can see how that's a challenge. I'm going to go back and let's say I wanted to find the measure of some angles. So we'll call this A, B, C, and let's say I want to find this one down here. Okay. What do we know about these two angles right here? We know they're vertical, which means they're the same. So if I plug it into this y plus x, I can find this value down here. So 90 plus 30 equals 120. So I know that this down here is 120. And then I'm just going to check myself to make sure I did do it correctly because I know that this is a linear pair and this has to be 60. So I'm going to plug this 30 in here just to double check. 2 times 30 is in fact 60. So that verifies to me that I actually did that correctly. Okay. All right, this next section is going to be like what we would do for whiteboard. So I would give you this problem, you'd work it out on your whiteboard, and then we'd work it out together. Because it's a video, what you could do is pause your video right now, work it out, and then turn your video back on and see if you got the same answer that I got. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. So I've got vertical angles here, and I've got vertical angles here. So it doesn't matter which one I start with. I'm going to start with the x's. So I have 8x plus 7 equals 9x minus 4. I'm going to go ahead and solve this. So I pick on the little guy, which is 8. So subtract 8 on both sides. So 7 is equal to x minus 4. Now I'm going to add 4 to both sides. And so x is equal to 11. Okay. Now I'll go back and do my y values. Go ahead and change colors on that so we can decipher the two. So I've got 5y equals 7y minus 34. So I'm going to, now here's a special situation. Normally I would pick on the little guy. And in this particular time, I'm actually not going to pick. This is one of the few times I don't pick on the little guy. So if I picked on this little guy, this 5y right here, and I moved it over to the other side, I'm going to be left with 0 on this side. And then I have to end up moving 34 again. I don't want to move that many times. Like I can still get the answer. It's just a lot of moving. So whenever we go to pick on the little guy and the little guy's by itself, I'm going to pick on the big guy. So in this case, I'm going to move the 7y instead of the little guy. So I've got negative 2y is equal to negative 34. And then when I divide both sides by negative 2, y is equal to positive 17. Okay. All right, here's another one. Again, you could pause your video and then come back and check your answer with me. So I'm going to mark. So, oops, I lost my pen. There it is. I'm going to mark these congruent. Those are my vertical angles. So I have 4x equals 6x minus 26. Okay, this is that same situation. Again, if I pick on the 4x, he's all alone. And I'm going to do a lot more moving. So I'm going to pick on the big guy this time. So minus 6x. So I've got negative 2x equals negative 26. Divide both sides by negative 2. And so x is positive 13. Okay. Oops, sorry, I keep trying to move with the wrong thing. All right, so now these are vertical angles this direction. So I have 7y minus 12 equals 6y plus 8. So we're going to, this time I will pick on the little guy. So I'm going to subtract 6y. Sorry, I don't know what happened there. And so I've got 1y minus 12 equals 8. I'm going to add 12 to both sides. So y is equal to 20. So those are my two answers. If I ask you specifically, for an angle, like if I said find the measure of angle ABC, and you just plug it back in. So I would say 4 times 13 to get my angle measure to 52. And then if that's 52, then I know that this is a linear pair. So I could just do 180 minus 52 to find one of those. And then just go around and find all the answers. All right, let's do one more. So let's look at this one. These two are vertical. So I've got 2 times 5x minus 5 equals 6x plus 50. So Dad can pick chocolate muffins. So I'm going to start with the D, which is distribution. So I'm going to distribute. So I have 10x minus 10 equals 6x plus 50. So I'm going to pick on the little guy, which happens to be 6. So I subtract 6x from both sides. 4x minus 10 equals 50. Add 10, so 4x equals 60. Divide 4x equals 15. Okay. I'm going to go back here and do the this one right here. So I've got 5y plus 5 equals 7y minus 9. Pick on the little guy. Oops. So 5. Sorry, keep hitting something. 2y minus 9. Add 9 to both sides. So 2y is equal to 14. Y is equal to 7. And those are my two values. And that is vertical angles.